Property management is hard. Anyone who has ever worked for a property management company or built one, you know how difficult it can be. And I'll never forget that day, probably 5 years ago, where I had an owner call me very frustrated about something that was happening on site. And I told him that I would look into the issue and figure it out as quickly as possible. And I struggled so heavily. I consider myself a really quick, efficient person. And in that moment, I couldn't be. I couldn't find the data that I needed. I couldn't figure out what was going on with that asset. And I was calling so many people and trying to get to the bottom of it. And I finally threw my hands up. I actually walked into one of my partner's offices and I said, that's it. Like, we need to fix this. And I think we just need to build our own. And that is where Fortress came from. So we aren't the first or the only property management company to build our own software. A few other companies have done it. Some have actually succeeded and others have failed. The ones that have succeeded mostly kept it internal. They aren't offering it externally. To do so requires a whole nother level. So when we have talked to property management companies about the fact that we've done this, there is a level of shock. And I think immediately those companies tend to underestimate what we built. They assume that we built something very specific to Elmington or very specific to our experiences or a limited product that we could support. So it's a lot of fun when we sit down in a demo and we actually pull Fortress up and they experience the breadth of Fortress and the ease of use and the functionality of it. It's a really special experience to know that the expectation out there is that this is going to be really hard or difficult, or that you're not going to be able to build something that everyone can use, or that it might not work. But yet they see that it does, and it's a really special experience.